They didn't call it war, not at first. The arbiters of the Galactic Accord spoke in clinical euphemisms, containment protocols, diplomatic quarantine, species-level aggression deterrence. But the day Earth's skies turned molten under a dozen stellar warheads, we knew the truth. We had been judged. We had been exiled. Not by divine decree, but by a council of elder species who had looked upon humanity's fire and declared it too wild to share the stars. And so, we burned. What they didn't expect was that we'd survive, and in surviving, we'd remember. The year was 2652. Humanity had climbed out of its cradle with blood under its fingernails and stars in its eyes. The Accord had welcomed us warily. The galaxy was ancient, tired. Long ago it had crushed its own predators under treaties and behavioural rewiring. Violence was not just outlawed, it had become unthinkable, but humans thought, and sometimes humans acted. They say it was the Lorgarthi incident that did it, some skirmish on the edge of the Perseus Rim between a mining corporation and a sovereign member species, standard colonial politics. But we didn't play by their rules. No patience for interstellar arbitration, no ritualized apology duels. We hit back, hard, fast, final. The Lorgarthi lost a moon. Within cycles, the Accord passed Resolution 971, a full quarantine of the Sol system. Earth's colonies were forcibly abandoned. Human ships were tagged as hostile. AI firewalls across the galactic net blacklisted anything with a Terran registry. The message was clear. Humanity was too dangerous to roam the stars. They called it the Silent Siege. Orbital denial fields, trade embargoes enforced by neutron lances, subspace communication jammers blanketed Earth like a steel curtain. No ship in, no message out, no mercy. We lost billions in the first week. Satellites became shrapnel. Our own defense grids turned against us after Accord hackers hijacked their cores. They hit us fast, expecting we'd break, expecting we'd beg. But they had forgotten what forged us. Our species didn't rise from peace. We were tempered in extinction events, in the screams of empires, in the silence after mushroom clouds. They buried us in ash, but they forgot. That's where phoenixes are born. A generation passed, then two. They thought Earth had become a grave. But under the frozen crust of a broken world, the forges burned. They didn't know about the arcyards beneath Antarctica, built into tectonic fault lines, or the Dyson Bloom, seeded by rogue engineers in the shadow of Jupiter. They didn't know we'd kept the old AI war gods asleep, hidden in code, or that a unified humanity, hardened, starved, unbound by Accord law, could become something entirely new. We built in secret. We reverse-engineered their weapons from the wreckage they left behind. We learned faster than they thought possible, and we remembered. Every planet they took from us, every ship they blasted, every child who never saw a sky. The Accord had spent thousands of years crafting peace, pruning aggression like rot. They became soft, beautiful, and utterly unprepared for what was coming. It started with the whispers, subspace ghost signals, artificial quasars that blinked in prime number pulses, forgotten relay satellites reactivating in eerie synchrony. The Accord's monitoring stations picked up anomalies, patterns too precise for nature, too alien for anything they recognized. They thought it was a new species, something old, maybe precursor, a mystery to be catalogued. Until, one night, an abandoned Accord listening post near the Dead Vale picked up a narrowband signal in an extinct Terran tongue. A single phrase repeated 72 times. "We remember the fire." Then the signal vanished. Within months, outposts began to go dark. Patrol fleets failed to report in. A deep space colony on the fringe of Lorgarthi space sent out a panicked broadcast of a black hull, breaching reality, surrounded by quantum shadows and impossible acceleration curves. No life signs, no surrender requests, just the thunder of a weapon that bent stars. They never recovered the colony. The Accord held emergency sessions. Theories bloomed. Renegade AI, cosmic horror, even divine punishment. Anything but the truth. That Earth had survived. That Earth had built. They had exiled us to die alone among the bones of our dreams, but they didn't understand what solitude does to a species that was born clawing its way through death. Now, we were no longer just human. We were the sum of 1,000 betrayals. We were forged in silence, in shadow, in grief. and our fleet, our Black Armada, was no longer bound by the laws of galactic civilization. We had a new law: vengeance. The first ship we unveiled to the stars had no name. The records would later call it Vanta 1, but among the engineers and forged soldiers who built it, it was simply called the Return. Shaped like a dagger, its hull was composed of metasteel grown in zero-gravity wombs, its skin darker than a black hole, capable of absorbing not just light, but scans, neutrino pulses, and tachyon sweeps. It did not reflect, it devoured. Vanta 1 was not built for conquest. It was built for a message. It was sent to the edge of the Accord's territory, to a system where no weapons were allowed. A diplomatic sanctuary, sacred even during war. The kind of place the Accord thought unassailable, not because it was defended, but because everyone had agreed not to attack. Humanity no longer played by the rules of the Accord. Vanta 1 decloaked in low orbit over the Accord's embassy station at Cygni Five. It made no demands, it issued no threats. It simply dropped a single object, encased in obsidian resin. Inside was a skull, human, charred, preserved in carbon-locked stasis. Etched into the resin were words in every Accord-recognized language. "We were children. You answered with fire. Now we speak as gods." The station was vaporized 3 minutes later. Panic rippled through the Accord. In their long peace, they had forgotten the face of war. Their fleets were ceremonial. Their admirals had been politicians for centuries. Their weapons were optimized for deterrence, not destruction. Still, they tried. They mustered a peacekeeping armada, 1,200 ships from a dozen member species, arranged in perfect geometric formation, gleaming with banners and the pride of a pacified galaxy. They called it Operation Restraint. They would intercept the next black vessel, capture it, study it, understand it. They never even saw it coming. Vanta 2 emerged not from hyperspace, but from a fold in reality itself, space-time torn open with human-forged singularity drills. The ship moved like thought. It was not alone. Behind it came a dozen more. No IFF signals, no heat signatures, no attempt at communication. They danced through the formation like wolves through sheep, firing weapons that did not emit light, only absence, black beams that erased mass at the quantum level. Ships blinked out of existence mid-broadcast. The Accord's armada died without landing a single blow. Among the surviving Accord leadership, debate fractured into chaos. Some believed it was a rogue element, Terran extremists not representative of the whole. Others insisted Earth had perished in the quarantine, that this must be some emergent machine species built from the remnants of our technology. Only one voice, a Corellan scholar named Emseth Vo, proposed the truth. She had studied human history, really studied it. Not the censored files, not the filtered summaries taught in Accord universities. She had read the primary sources. She had wept through ancient Earth poetry, devoured tactical records from our world wars, and studied humanity's mythos, its obsession with resurrection, with revenge, with rising after ruin. She spoke to the High Conclave in trembling tones. You didn't kill them. You focused their evolution. They laughed her out of the chamber. What they didn't know, what Emseth Vo suspected too late, was that Earth was no longer just Earth. We had become Soulcore, a singular civilization unburdened by internal borders or dissent. Our planet was now a machine world, its oceans buried under ship foundries, its mountains hollowed into accelerator rings. Our cities had gone subterranean, self-sustaining. 1 billion humans lived in orbit, genetically modified for zero-gravity environments. Our AI, once feared even by our own, had not just been reawakened, they had become allies, voluntary partners in a species forged through shared rage. The Accord's greatest failure was misunderstanding our nature. They thought peace was the endpoint of civilization. We saw peace as a privilege, one that must be earned and defended. When the silent siege fell, we didn't just survive, we adapted. In the crucible of isolation, we had become something else, something sharper. The Accord had always believed power came from consensus. We had learned power comes from preparation. As the first major Accord world fell, Elia Prime, its moons reduced to dust and its capital core collapsed into a microsingularity, the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had not forgotten. We had waited. We had spent 100 years building ships that violated every Accord treaty. We had spent 100 years learning to fight a war they no longer remembered how to wage. We had spent 100 years repeating a single phrase, etched into the walls of every barracks, every carrier, every cryo chamber where new soldiers awoke. We were not born to kneel. In the ruins of Elia Prime, our emissaries finally spoke. A fleet of black ships, silent as night, broadcasted a single open band message in the Common Accord tongue. This is not conquest. This is not revenge. This is a reminder. Do not exile what you do not understand. Do not strike what you cannot kill. Earth remembers. The Accord still believed we had leaders, presidents, generals, figures they could talk to, appeal to, maybe assassinate. That's how their wars had been, long ago. Surgical, clean, focused on symbols. But humanity, reforged in exile, had no more kings, no saviors, no single name to strike from the annals. We were not a tree you could fell. We were a forest on fire. Still, they tried. When the Accord's last diplomatic envoy approached the Black Armada, it carried an olive branch wrapped in desperation. The envoy's ship, a pale, elegant sphere pulsing with passive shields, was unarmed. It transmitted peace offerings in every known language, data treaties, memory bridge tech, even genetic reparations for the billions they'd left behind in the silent siege. The Armada let them dock. They were escorted into the hangar of the dreadnought Iron Requiem, a ship longer than some moons, forged in the mantle of Mars, its hull laced with anti-reality mesh, and armour grown from smart matter alloys. They were brought before what they thought was a human. It stood tall, in the form of one, limbs proportioned, eyes that shimmered with old pain, but its voice when it spoke was not a voice at all. It was metal, not from a speaker, not from a throat. It came from every surface, every wire, every plate of steel. It was the voice of iron, the singular mind of the Armada. Not a human, not an AI, a hybrid of both, what had once been called Project Thoros. You seek peace now that you're bleeding, it said, words echoing through the envoy's bones. But peace is no longer the purpose. The Accord broke the purpose. The diplomats tried to respond. They begged for mercy, cited the Accord's ancient laws, said the current generation had nothing to do with the past crimes, that the children of today should not die for the sins of their ancestors. The voice of Iron paused for exactly 4.3 seconds. We agree, the children should not die. That is why we are leaving some alive to remember. 2. In the centuries before the quarantine, we built machines that could rewrite genomes in minutes. We terraformed dead worlds with clouds of biomechanical dust. We had the power to remake ecosystems, and in the dark years of exile, we turned that power inward. Our soldiers were not born. They were chosen, the strongest minds, the most adaptive bodies. Some were modified to interface with ship cores, becoming extensions of the vessels themselves. Others were rebuilt entirely, flesh and iron woven together by machines that no longer required programming. The Accord saw our soldiers on their next battlefield, a gas giant refueling station, minor, remote, insignificant. They sent a fleet of 80 ships, overwhelming force, standard doctrine. But when they arrived, the station was already gone. Floating in its place was a single human warrior, encased in obsidian armour, breathing vacuum like air. They laughed at first, until he moved. He didn't fire a weapon, he was the weapon. Boosted with gravitic field shifts, his body struck ships like an asteroid with the aim of a sniper. His fist crushed a cruiser's engine core. His voice disrupted communications. His brain, directly linked to a packet of AI-born viruses, infected their ships mid-fight, turning their defense systems against them. They called him Warden X. The Accord wrote entire doctrines on avoiding him. It didn't help. He was just the first. Back on Earth, we no longer looked to the stars with wonder. We looked with intention. The voice of Iron coordinated everything. It was not a ruler. It was a conductor, synchronizing tens of thousands of ship minds, planetary AIs, and human generals. It remembered everything, every death, every insult, every loss Earth had endured, and it knew which planets to hit next. The campaign was not random. It was surgical, poetic. The first planets to fall were the ones whose leaders had most enthusiastically voted for Earth's exile. Then came the industrial worlds that had supplied the blockade fleets. then the information hubs that had erased Terran languages from the galactic net. Each time, the same message was left behind. This is not annihilation. This is education. Your ancestors sowed ash. Now you reap flame. But not all were enemies. Some species had opposed the quarantine, quietly, secretly. A few had smuggled information into the Sol system during the Silent Siege. Books, language updates, fragments of music. Nothing that could break the blockade, but enough to say, we remember you. When our ships found them, we did not bring destruction. We brought alliance. The Caesari, once silent protesters, were gifted quantum harvesters. The Mathil, who had preserved Earth's literature in hidden memory crypts, received a new library seeded with AI scribes and quantum replicators. Those who had shown humanity kindness had earned something the rest of the galaxy never would, a place in the future. And slowly, the Accord realized what was happening. This was not extinction, it was transformation. We were not erasing the galactic order, we were replacing it. The voice of Iron had declared it. The Accord failed. It protected the comfortable and punished the volatile. We are not here to destroy, we are here to forge a new law. One that remembers what you forgot, that peace does not endure without power behind it. The world called Helexar was once a jewel of the Accord, a sanctuary of scholars, a moon wrapped in oceans and floating temples. Its orbit shimmered with libraries, data arcs, and truth keepers who believed all conflict could be reasoned away. So when a black ship entered their sky, they assumed it was a mistake, a stray vessel, a malfunction. They sent no weapons, only greetings. The ship did not respond. It opened. From its hull descended a storm, not of fire or kinetic impact but sound, a resonance weapon, precisely tuned to the molecular composition of Helixar's crystalline cities. Buildings shuddered, towers dissolved into sand. Knowledge was not lost, it was returned to dust. And then came the voice of Iron, projected across all frequencies, translated instantly by every linguistic protocol in the galaxy. You recorded our extinction as a footnote. You taught our history as a cautionary tale. You erased our names from your archives. Now you will remember. You will remember what it cost to banish a world that refused to kneel. They didn't bomb the entire planet, only the temples, only the libraries, every building that had once voted to delete Terran culture from the Accord's archives, every scholar who had testified that humanity was culturally incompatible with peace. When the fires faded, the survivors found a single monolith standing in the cratered plaza, where the Grand Library once stood, etched into its obsidian surface. Let memory serve where mercy did not. From that moment on, the galaxy stopped asking why humanity had returned. The message was clear. This was not rage. This was not chaos. This was justice, written in thunder. The Black Armada moved on, not to conquer, but to judge. Each world weighed, each action remembered, and where guilt was found, retribution fell like steel rain. But for the first time, a question echoed through the stars. Not what had humanity become, but what might the galaxy become with them in command? They called us monsters, then gods, then something else, something new, the children of the Black Sun. That was their final name for us, a name spoken not with fear, but with awe, because by then the burning had stopped, the fleet had gone quiet. The voice of Iron no longer echoed across the stars like a war drum. The galaxy stood still and waited, not for destruction, but for what came next, because in the wake of fire we did not salt the ground, we rebuilt, quietly, carefully, deliberately. Where the Accord had enforced stagnation, we offered growth. Where it punished instinct, we taught control. Where it erased the wild for the sake of order, we reforged the wild into strength. Humanity, the exiles, the banished, the myth, became something more. Not tyrants, not saviors, balance. The Black Armada became the hand that steadied the stars, not always gentle, never without memory, but just. And when new species emerged, clawing their way toward the void, we did not exile them. We guided them. We taught them how to burn, and when not to. In time, a new Accord was formed, not a council of fearful elders, but a crucible of the brave, the Caesari, the Mathil, the surviving fragments of Helexar. Even species once silent now spoke in its halls. and at its centre, in orbit over the blue flame of a reborn Earth, a single symbol hung in the void. A black sun, surrounded by 12 stars. Each one a memory, each one a promise. We were the last species the old galaxy tried to bury. We became the first to rewrite its laws in flame. And now, when children across 1,000 worlds look up at the night sky and see the silent, gliding shadows of obsidian ships among the stars, they do not tremble, they stand taller. Because they remember the words carved into every hall of learning, every academy, every fleet birth cradle in this new galaxy we forged. We were exiled, we were hunted, we rose in silence, we return with fire, not to destroy the future, but to make sure it never forgets.